Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'm going to give you a lesson about African art. Where does it come from? Who were some of the creators of African art? And most of all, what makes African art still so important to us today? African art has played a major role in the development of today's culture and the world's history. African artworks can be thousands of years old and can be seen in many different museums.
So I decided to pick the most interesting thing I've seen at the Met Museum. I noticed this piece of wonderful sculpture. This is the figure of a seated couple. This was made from the late 18th century, from the early 19th century. It was made from the tribe, the Dogon peoples. The medium they used was wood and metal. The wooden sculpture complexity has been created for display at the funeral of influenced Dogon men. The couple are a perfect union. The roles of the family are shown from the arrows are on the father's back to the child on the mother's back. Then you see the woman ornament echoing the husband's beard. This shows you how united the couple are. This is a great representation on how couples are in the Dogon society, showing how the men and the woman work together as a family. While the father goes and hunts for the family, the mother stays home and nurtures the family. This makes a perfect life for the Mogollon people.
But decades of government-backed injustice before it did. Apartheid really began in 1948, but separating black Africans from the white minority had long been a policy aim. Laws made white people officially superior, and the large black majority faced discrimination in every aspect of their lives. Living, doing business or owning land in white areas was banned. There were separate public facilities, transport and schools. Interracial marriage was banned. Many had no right to citizenship and were regarded as aliens in major cities. Instead, they were made citizens of Bantustans, homelands scattered throughout South Africa. But resistance grew. In 1960, a huge peaceful protest against past laws ended in a massacre at Sharpeville. 69 people were killed. The deaths galvanized opposition, radicalizing liberation movements like the ANC.
There are many people who feel that it is useless and futile for us to continue talking peace and non-violence.
Open conflict erupted in the 1980s, with anti-apartheid activists frequently shot at, beaten or arrested. Mass protests were firmly put down. But little by little, the apartheid establishment crumbled. After gradual reform, Nelson Mandela, imprisoned since not long after Sharpeville, was set free in 1990. 4 years later, he was elected as South Africa's first black president. Apartheid had ended.
Ernest Cole was a South African photographer that I decided to take a closer look at. Here's a video interview from another South African photographer, David Goldblatt,
Ernest Cole
explaining
was
Ernest
a young
Cole's art.
black man brought up in a black township near Pretoria. Mamelodi in South Africa. Ernest Cole was unquestionably an intimate of black life. He knew its richness and he knew its humiliation and hardship under apartheid. And he showed these qualities most eloquently in his photographs. I find it very moving, and it's a remarkably astute, penetrating, and at the same time photographically sophisticated essay on what it was like, what it meant to be a black person living under apartheid. He became interested in photography as a kid. He did photographs of people in the township at $1 a time, 10 cents South African. And then, being of an independent frame of mind, he refused to participate in what was called Bantu education. Bantu means the people, but in fact it was the term applied by the National Party government to black people specifically. And Bantu education was a specific kind of education that they developed for black children during the years of apartheid. And fundamentally it was an education for servanthood. The standard of maths, science, biology, and language was very low. He resigned himself from Bantu education. He left school and he became a photographer, then became totally engrossed in building up this essay on life as a black person, to the extent that he got his name changed. How the hell he managed to do that, one doesn't know, because it wasn't just a change of name of Kole, K-O-L-E, to Cole, C-O-L-E. He had to get himself reclassified from black to colored. It's the most appalling story. They had various tests to put you through. So they might put a pencil into your hair and see if it dropped out. If it did, that meant you had the silky hair of a Caucasian. If it didn't, you had the curly hair of an African, the tight curls of an African. We had gradations of privilege in South Africa. Ernest Cole needed greater freedom of movement to carry out this self-assigned essay of his, and he had himself reclassified. In fact, he was quite clearly a black person. Somehow he persuaded these officials that he was colored, and he changed his name to Cole.
This next clip shows how during the civil rights movement, African art was used as a voice for the oppressed.
And I love the art, but I never saw myself in it.
You have to understand the times. It was the 1960s. Marches, boycotts.
Blacks were portrayed as stereotypes, caricatures, and archetypes.
The Wall of Respect was based on honoring heroes, sheroes in different areas of the arts.
That imagery might have been the first time people had really seen something positive, you know, something like this is what it looks like, success looks like.
We were African Americans living in a country where we couldn't even vote in some states. There are places we couldn't go in.
One of the things that we needed more than anything else was control over our own destiny.
The Wall of Respect sort of showed us that we could do this. It jump-started after Cobra.
It was like wake-up time.
It's nation time.
It's nation time.
To build a nation, you need everybody to work together.
Individuals can't have the impact like a group has.
The first meeting was at Wadsworth Gerald's studio on 61st Street. We were really focusing on communicating visually to the viewer, and the viewer that we were looking at looked like us. I see you.
AfriCobra means African Commune of Bad, Relevant Artists.
The point is you speak through your work.
Each one of us individually are good at what we do, but collectively we're gooder. Bad is actually gooder.
AfriCobra was based on trying to communicate positive ideas to the people.
The positivity we were reaching for was something that we all agreed needed to be done and could be achieved.
We didn't do images of downtrodden people.
We're not about subjugating. We're about uplifting.
You can appreciate who you are, especially when you're confronted with our work, because you can always see yourself in the picture.
The opportunity is there. It can be negative or positive, and I want to impress upon them positive ideas.
When you have that connection to a community that you're speaking to and they respond, that art is an ultimate act of love.
It warmed my soul because of the fact that I felt like that I was making an impact in the community.
You plant those seeds by allowing them to know that they are worthy and important and necessary to society as a whole.
Even if this is not a part of your experience now, everyone should be aware of it.
AfriCOBRA belongs to all of humanity.
We laid everything out. We created a black aesthetic. We created a school of thought.
Look at this work that's here. This is ours.
They don't look like anybody else's work. You know, they look like our work, AfriCOBRA work.
I'm black and I'm proud. And I want the world to know that.
Do you see us?
Right.
Do you know what we're into?
Exactly.
Do you know what our experience is? Do you see me?
Right.
Yeah. I see you.
So now, what is African art? To me, African art is a form of expression that breaks all color barriers and brings hope to a world full of injustice. African art has been here since the beginning, and its influence will be here until the end of time. I was so inspired by this class so much. My artistic style has changed to a more African style. Here are some of my artwork. I now consider myself as an African artist.